All right. Let's go back here to the bottom of page 133. And again, we're speaking about the need of the soul to pray, not just the want of the soul to pray, the need of the soul to pray, just like the need of the body to eat. Let's go to the bottom. So frequent is the disconnect, right? That's where we're up to here. Okay. Right. Does anyone want to read?
I'll read.
Please.
So frequent is the disconnect between need and schedule that it raises challenging questions. Should a person pray only when he is prepared, in the right mood, and undistracted? Or is it enough that he conduct himself appropriately? If he cannot keep his mind on the words of prayer, is that no prayer at all? Or is it enough that he applies himself as best he can?
Right. So if we are speaking about the fact that the soul has a need to pray, does that mean that we ought to relate to it indeed as the body that has need to eat? And if we are relating to the soul that has need to pray as the body that has need to eat, then does the body necessarily have to be hungry in order to fulfill that need? What about my kids are never hungry, but my wife forces them to eat because the body needs to eat? Some people relate to prayer like that. Well, you don't necessarily want to pray, but you need to pray, so force it upon yourself. And yes, that prayer is not going to be the ultimate prayer, the most spiritual, emotional prayer, but some people relate to prayer like that. But is a prayer like that altogether worthy prayer or not? Right? So that idea really comes and brings about many questions, including this specific one. Or if we go back to the body having a need to eat, so we can ask differently, not just the question we just asked, but if the body has a need to eat, then what type of food will fulfill that need? Healthy food? How about candies? How about chocolate? My favorite, dark chocolate.
Yes.
How about dark chocolate? So will that fulfill that need? Same with prayer. If the soul has a need to pray, what type of prayer will fulfill that need? Or any type of prayer? If we say any type of prayer, fine, then that forceful prayer is good enough. If we say no, it's only the emotional prayers, the good prayers, the prayers that come from the depths of our heart, just like we may say that it's only the healthy foods that fulfill the need to eat, then it's not good enough to just robotically pray, right? So you have other questions that stem from that. Please, yes.
So I'm back to healthy system.
Oh, okay, good.
No, this is an interesting.
Yeah.
You know, when we joined the show here, and I have to say this, you guys pray at like warp speed, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, you know, I come to show and you know, my Hebrew's pretty good. I mean, not speaking Hebrew, but very good. But I can't keep up with you guys. I mean, it's not because I can keep up with better than others.
Yeah.
And then there's times when I am looking at the English instead of the Hebrew because I want to better understand what it is I'm saying in Hebrew. So that really amounts to, in a sense, a disconnect with prayer. Yes, no?
Yes and no. Yes and no. Yes and no. I would say it's like food. That's why this example Rabbi Steinsaltz brings is so powerful. It's like food. Now, why am I saying it's like food? Because if we're going to use the example that we just used of healthy food versus unhealthy food, so does every meal need to be completely healthy? Does that mean I have to have kale and broccoli and quinoa for every meal?
Yes.
Or can I throw in quinoa? Sorry, quinoa. Or can I throw in maybe I don't know, some unhealthy food, some fried chicken?
No.
From time to time. So I would say it's the same prayer. I don't think it's going to damage your soul if you throw in a piece of fried chicken from time to time. Yes, you should have broccoli and kale and quinoa. Quinoa. It just shows you. My wife will tell you exactly it's pronounced, it's spelled and everything. I'm not so much like that, but it doesn't matter. But it won't kill you if you have a robotic prayer from time to time, right? Same idea. But I do think that therefore the solution is, and I've said this to many people, and that is, yes, sometimes we can't focus on the entire prayer. It's almost impossible. But we can choose some prayers to give our all to. Yes, we still finish at 1 p.m. on Shabbat, which people complain about, and it's still going at light speed, right? So, but from 9 to 1, if you come on Shabbat mornings, you can at least pick 5 minutes if it's breaking into time frames, or pick 1 or 2 prayers in which you do give your all to. And that will be your kale, that will be your broccoli or your quinoa, right?
Rabbi, so
Yes,
the amount of people in this shul that are so literate, Israelis, people that are extremely familiar with the davening and Israeli style,
Mhm.
would you say that the congregation prays in a way that, because there's such a deep familiarity and a literacy,
Right.
that people probably speak faster, because when they speak Hebrew, they speak quickly. Is that part of the culture?
Yeah, but I would say that, thank God we've grown and we
Yes.
keep growing. When people ask me, how many members are there in your congregation? My answer is, before you ask the question, or after you ask it.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
But so
Yeah.
I would say that maybe used to be true, that there are so many Israelis and therefore the prayer goes quickly. I think most of the congregation right now does not necessarily even know how to read Hebrew,
Yes.
which is a blessed thing. That's why we're here.
Right.
But I would also say that, on the weekdays, the answer is a good answer, but people are working. So they have to go out and work. If we were to pray and focus on every word, then we'd be out of year 11 and no one will get a job today.
Sure.
So on Shabbat, also, people are hungry and it's very hard to compete with the stomach. So you have to finish at least.
Also hard to have
o'clock.
Kabbalah for that much time.
Right, and it's hard to have kavanah for as much time. But I would say again, there's two solutions. One that we just said, focus on 1 or 2 or 3 prayers and make that your prayer. Another solution, which is a more complicated one, but that was Rabbi Steinsaltz's solution. He started to pray with the minyan, but he didn't necessarily finish praying with the minyan. He went on and on and on. The minyan went home, they all went to eat, and he would stay on Shabbat at least until 3 and 4, 5 p.m. and pray. That's another solution. It's less practical than the first one. Another solution: build your own rhythm.
Yeah.
Yes, Mom.
So the short form of the Shema.
Yeah.
Is what, 30 lines?
Yeah, I don't know exactly how many.
I mean, there's a short form of Amida.
Oh, the Amida.
Yeah,
Yes.
Sorry, I mean,
Yeah,
30 lines.
yeah, something like that. Yeah.
You say it if there's if the Russians are coming down,
Right. There is. Yeah.
but is it sufficient to use that on other occasions when you're stressed, your mind isn't focused, and you can take your energy and focus on that short form of Mida and not go through the 19 blessings or
Right. So excellent. That's an excellent question, because there is, you're right. It's not so well published and famous, but there is a short abbreviated prayer in cases of danger, or in extreme cases, let's put it that way. In fact, there's a great story at the beginning of the Talmud, and the Tractate of Brachot speaks about Rabbi Yossi, who was traveling, and he stopped into a ruin in order to pray. And Elijah the prophet came to visit him. And he said to him, Rabbi Yossi, you are mistaken. If you are really traveling and you're escaping danger, then you should pray a short prayer. You don't have to go into a room to pray a long prayer. And secondly, you don't walk into a room to begin with. That in of itself is a danger. It can collapse on you. And I think he said to him one more thing. But the deeper conversation that we're having is explained by the Hasidic commentaries. It's very powerful. Rabbi Yossi lived during the times of the Roman persecution. And when Elijah the prophet came to visit him, he told Rabbi Yossi, you are praying for too long. Right now, you have to rebuild the Jewish world. Prayer has to take the back seat. Action has to take the front seat. Go and rebuild, don't pray. And it goes to the very root of it. Prayer is the need of the soul, as we just said. But sometimes that need has to be condensed into 1 or 2 prayers, just like sometimes we don't have time to eat, right? If you're in battle, if you're a soldier fighting a battle, you don't have time to eat. That's why I was always amazed. I remember my father is an aeronautical engineer, who used to try and brainwash us with aeronautics when we were kids. And one of the things that he would do is take us to Air Force museums and so on. And I remember that there was a pilot I remember that vividly as a young child, maybe 7 years old. The pilot who came to give us a whole exhibition of how the cockpit looks like, but then he took out a little travel kit that apparently every fighter pilot has, and that travel kit has to stay with them all the time, even when they fall in captivity. What does that travel kit have? It's some first aid stuff, and then it has pills that are made out of butter and high calorie foods that they can eat in case they fall into captivity, because in captivity no one will give them food, they'll starve them to death, but this will sustain them for a long time. So I'm thinking to myself, sometimes if you're at war, if you're a pilot in captivity, you can't really eat. What do? So you won't eat altogether, so you'll take those pills. I'm saying sometimes we're in a war, in exile, that we have to rebuild the Jewish world. The emphasis shouldn't be on eating, shouldn't be on prayer. Take those, you still have to pray, so make your prayer short. That's what Elijah the prophet was telling us. Take those pills, those butter pills, whatever they are. I don't even remember what ingredient. I don't remember butter was one of the ingredients, and then focus on action more. There were times in Jewish history in which prayer was indeed the main ingredient, the main exercise. And that's sometimes because history forced us into these small villages where we couldn't really rebuild the Jewish world. The Jewish world, as we knew it, was built in those villages. So we can focus on prayer. We can focus more on that need of the soul. But sometimes the prayers need to be abbreviated on a collective basis. And then also, as you were mentioning, on an individual basis. So you have those abbreviated prayers, but it's not often that you can really say it. Just technically speaking, you have to be indeed in danger. Then you can say it. But on the deeper level, on the root level, again, the big question, which applies to all of us, is how much emphasis should we give to prayer versus action? The Lubavitcher Rebbe, for example, was known to pray very quickly. Speaking of light, and his predecessors, the first Chabad Rebbe was a man who's prayed with tremendous ecstasy and prayed very longly. His shortest prayer must have been 2 hours. I'm talking about a weekly morning prayer. The Lubavitcher Rebbe's prayers, weekly prayers in the morning, was about 40 minutes, 45 minutes. It's a big difference. But that's because he believed that the world after the Holocaust needs to be rebuilt. The Jewish world after the Holocaust, action is what counts. So he focused less, dare I say, who am I to say, but analyzing it, less on prayer and more on action. Sometimes that on an essential level, that's what's needed more. And it's true for our own personal lives. I'm talking about the world altogether, but sometimes we have to know, when do we focus truly on prayer and when do we focus on action? Sometimes there is no room for long prayers. Sometimes you really have to condense your prayer because, hey, there's so much for you to do today.
So it raises the next question. During Shabbos, just around Haftorah, a number of men leave the service.
Yeah.
And we congregate outside.
Yeah. Kiddush Club.
And we have a Kiddush.
The famous Kiddush Club, or the infamous Kiddush Club, yeah.
And I understand, food sometimes dictates survival. And so all of us
It's not.
is hired for survival.
Right.
What is your view on that? And is it insulting to the young man who's doing the Haftorah?
At the time. Now, look, I have a view that it's not, there's room for it. It's not meant for everybody. You know, you said it right. Napoleon said that, that an army marches on its stomach. L'armée marche sur son estomac in French. An army marches on its stomach. I don't know if you're familiar with that line. So I think that communities also march on their stomach. Some people have stronger stomachs, they can stay in the prayer longer. For the people that have weaker stomach, they can go to the Kiddush Club. So there's room for people, for the Kiddush Club, for people who with a weaker
And
stomach.
what about women? What happens if they get hungry?
No, hey, are they welcome to the Kiddush Club? I don't know. Are they welcome to the Kiddush Club, Mal? Do you know?
I have seen, but I haven't been there that often. So
Well, you know what? Let me propose this. Let the women of our congregation
I'll never
open their own Kiddush Club.
Oh, our own.
Go for it. Yeah. Yeah, bring your own Kiddush club and you can serve liquor instead of whiskey. Or whatever
we'll
it
keep
is.
prayers going.
One
inside,
drop.
It's okay.
Okay.
That's right.
I think women have stronger stomachs. That's all.
That's what I hear.
Okay,
What's that?
yeah,
Come on,
What's that?
yeah,
let's go on a marathon this week. I mean, come on. you gotta get-
that's right.
Slices it all.
Yeah,
Okay, so prayer is fundamentally connection to
Mhm.
divine and connection to God.
Right.
If I pray and I pour my soul to God in Italian, in English, or I make my best attempt to read the Hebrew and pray in Hebrew. I don't know what I'm saying, I'm just reading it. But that is the language of God. So this is a question for God, perhaps. Which one God feels more connected to me?
right,
When I speak his language, even if I don't know what I'm saying, but I know he wants to hear it that way, or when I pour my soul, but I understand, I mean, I guess he understands too, but it's not even his language. So I guess which one is a deeper connection?
right. So that's an excellent question. First of all, one should pray according to his or her language, the language that the person understands. So if it's Italian, they should pray in Italian. If it's English, they pray in English. If it's Chinese, they should pray in Chinese. Because otherwise, no real connection can be formed,
Okay,
right? But on a deeper level, I think that both are two very different means of connection. Praying with your own language achieves the connection that is internal between me and God. We become one through the prayers that I can say. He understands me, I understand him, or I understand what he wants from me too. And then we can connect. When we speak in Hebrew, it doesn't necessarily connect me internally with God. But what it does is that it connects the world with God and the world around me with God, which is also a specific goal of prayer. And that's why prayer, as Rabbi Steinsaltz, I think, mentioned in the past, prayer needs to actually be verbalized. We can't just think prayer. We can't just say, you know what? You know the story about this grandmother who comes with her grandchild to synagogue for the first time. You know the story? I ever tell you the story? And practice, maybe I should say it. Anyway, it's his first time, and he comes and he sees it was a synagogue house. So that's the woman is sitting one side, and the grandchild is to go on the other side. And he goes on the other side. He sees everyone praying and asking for what they want. So he starts shouting, "God, give me an Xbox. God, give me a PlayStation. God, give me a Wii." And starts shouting. Someone next to him says, "Hey, kid, God is not deaf. You don't have to shout." He says, "You're right. God isn't deaf, but grandma on the other side is deaf."
That's good. Yeah.
So yeah, so we have to verbalize prayer. Sometimes we have to shout prayer. We have to, why? The deeper Kabbalistic reason is because when I verbalize prayer, I'm actually spreading holiness. I'm speaking the words of God, especially the Hebrew, right? The Hebrew, which is Lashon HaKodesh, the word of God, or the language of God, to my surroundings. It's sanctifying the world. So it achieves a different goal. Prayer achieves an internal connection, as mentioned. The prayer in Hebrew achieves a worldly connection, an external connection.
But
with God.
doesn't it also, by doing the prayer in Hebrew, you might not understand the specific words, but you know you're connected to your people.
Right.
Right.
Hebrew,
right.
That's
that you
true.
don't get with anything else.
That's very true. Right.
It's a
And that's also a
connection.
peripheral connection.
Yeah.
Right. Right. Very good. You're right.
I mean, same thing applies. I mean, when you go to a show you've never been in before, it's like you're.
It doesn't matter where you are in the world.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. Very good. Very good. Yeah. And there's another goal that achieves, if I may add just one more element. I would compare it to our children coming to us and praying to us, asking things from us. Xbox, PlayStation. That's right, which they have, but my children have, I don't know about yours. But yes, they have asked for an Xbox in the past. But so as a parent, there's a connection that is created when they ask, right, between me and my child and me. We have a rapport, we have communication. We're negotiating, we're connecting. That's one type of connection. If my son or my daughter comes and reads to me my favorite poem, or sings to me my favorite song, there's a higher type of connection. It's a connection in which we are connecting through ideals, not through requests. And in a way, when we speak Hebrew to God, when we pray in Hebrew, there's that same type of connection because it's singing his song, not my song. So we are connecting through on a higher plane, through ideals, not just through requests.
It's like, I don't know what I'm saying, but he knows.
Right. And that triggers something.
There's another reason, and that is, if we were in a situation where we were not learning Hebrew for prayer, the Hebrew language would have died by now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
exactly. Yes, we have. Right.
We have kept the language alive
Through prayer.
through the Sidur, through
Right.
the Torah.
Right.
We just did.
Through prayer and study.
But
Prayer and
prayer and
study.
study.
Yeah.
But it would be like Latin.
Right. No, very true.
But that also has kept us alive, that unifying.
Yeah, it's a unifying force.
Yeah,
It's our duty to learn.
that's right.
And we all have the ability to learn what it's saying.
Right.
One
Yeah.
line at a
Besides,
time.
when when you're praying, it's a fantastic puzzle to work through the Siddur on every Shabbos, not really understanding what you're reading, to try to take it to the next step.
Yeah.
And piecing all the little pieces together, so at the end of the service, you have something.
Right.
Well, I mean,
Go and study Hebrew. Everyone, then you'll understand. Yeah.
if you've ever been in a Reformed synagogue, probably did at some point. You almost feel like you're not in the synagogue.
Oh, no, that's,
I mean, you feel.
might as well do
This
the Christian church.
And
It's
you're
like,
like,
they sing and it is.
and then
That's
different place.
Right.
It's not a-
Look, I think I'm not gonna pick on the Reform synagogue, but I will say that there's something that is energetically different. And I think that it comes from this idea that is best represented through the way the cantor really stands. If you think about this, right? In our synagogue, for example, the cantor stands and faces the same direction as everyone else. While in other synagogues, the cantor faces the crowd and almost performs to the crowd. They face the crowd faces the other side.
Yeah.
I think in that alone, we see one of the massive differences.
It's not as enough.
Yeah, but it's not even a question of unifying. What we're saying is that the cantor is just like one of us. And he is there almost as a guide to help us connect to God. We're facing east, we're facing Jerusalem, eventually we're facing God. He's there really to help us, but he too has to connect to God. In the case where it's the opposite, where the cantor is facing the crowd, then the cantor is not a guide. The cantor is a performer. The cantor is there to entertain the crowd. It's not really about the direction, Jerusalem, the prayer. It's more about the entertainment itself. Not to put down others, God forbid, but I'm just saying, essentially, energetically, it's different. That's why, by the way, you don't really need a cantor. You don't. By the way, you don't need a rabbi. You don't.
We sure
You don't need
do.
a rabbi. You don't need a cantor. Ideally, everyone should be connecting to God without a guide, because everyone should have that should achieve that level. We're there just to really connect, to help connect, to guide, to somehow mold the path. But everyone is on the same level from that standpoint. And the aspiration of the congregation should be towards Jerusalem, towards God, not towards any human being.
And that comes across so well during the preparatory prayers. In our synagogue, where each individual, I mean, you can have 15 people reading parts of the Psalms
Right,
in the morning.
right.
And, you know, by the time the canter, I mean,
Yeah.
I'm not sure if there was, you know, if someone stands up and.
Yeah.
And leads, I mean,
Right, everyone participates in the same way, that's right, you very well said. You have to come at 9:30 to notice that, so.
Yeah. Yes.
That's right, I know, well done. Yeah, that's right. Okay, anyhow, so that's fine, so going back to the need of the soul. Just as the body is need, the soul is needs, and one of them is prayer, let's continue that. 134. Blending the inner and the outer. Does anyone want to continue to read? Unless Elizabeth, you want to continue? You want to see, please.
There is no perfect response to these problems. There is the practical answer, which is based on the assumption that in our time, people lack the proper concentration in prayer. And so Jewish law demands that we engage in the prayer services, even if we are not in the middle.
Mhm.
Alternately, perhaps one should not care about inner feelings, but stick to the external objective element. What if, at the time of prayer, one does not feel prepared, one is anxious, or one is absorbed in other things? If one can somehow control his emotions and at least assume the position of a person standing before a king, does he have an inner feeling of prayer? Is there a real prayer and true intention beyond fulfilling the halakhic ruling to pray at set times and in fixed forms?
Right. Right, I will add this, and I think that there's really value in both ideas that were just presented. An idea of proper concentration in prayer, of course, there's great value in that, but there's also great value in praying even if you don't feel like it. Why? First and foremost, because you are showing up. You know, my wife and I go out for coffee once a week just to touch base because our lives are so hectic. If I don't feel like going out for coffee, does that mean I shouldn't go out for coffee? Tell me.
No.
Tell me if you should go out anyhow, right? Why? Because it's an important point of connection. And maybe during coffee, I'll all of a sudden feel like it, or maybe not. But the act of going out for coffee separates really that time from all other times and makes it exclusive and even holy. Same here. If I don't feel like praying, it's but my coffee with God. That's what prayer is. My coffee with, if I don't feel like praying, does that mean I shouldn't pray? Pray. It separates that time and makes it holy. That's number one. But number two, I would dare say what I've said in the past, and that is that when you don't feel like praying and you pray anyhow, that's when you are truly loving God. That's when you are truly exercising the highest level of connection with God. Because if you feel like praying, and that's when you pray only, that means you're being very selfish. You're praying because it makes you feel good. So at the end of the day, it's about you and your good feelings. But when you pray, when you don't feel like it and you pray anyhow, that means you truly love. You're not praying for you. Right now you have zero good feeling. So why are you praying? For God. And that's the ultimate selfless act that one can do that expresses the highest level of love. So not feeling it is actually a higher level of connection. Yes.
Is it possible also that by praying, even if you don't feel like it, it would be the same like doing anything that we know we have to do, but we don't feel like it. Once you start doing it, you become so involved and so concentrated in it that ultimately you come out feeling even a higher level of
Right.
spirituality than you might have had you just felt like it.
That's right. That's right.
It's like in the morning.
Yeah.
I don't feel like doing. I force myself to get out of the door.
Yeah.
I don't feel like it at the same time.
That's right.
And you're into it and it's just so wonderful.
Yeah,
It's actually sometimes better than had I really, gee, I can't wait to.
that's right. That's right. So it's almost like a writer's block. Or if you're a musician, right? Sometimes you don't always go to the piano and feel like it, right? Now, but on the other hand, I think what is amazing is that if you can overcome your writer's block, all of a sudden, there's an inspiration that you couldn't have attained without this writer's block.
Right.
Why? Because before you had a writer's block, it was all about you. The writer's block now is really you channeling something that's greater than you.
Yeah.
It's not about you. The writer's block that opens up, it opened up not because of you, but because something that's greater than you. You yourself could not open it up because you're blocked. That's what a writer's block is. So the fact that it opened means that something greater came to open it up, because if it was only depending on you, you wouldn't have been able to open it up. So by overcoming writer's block, you're actually becoming a channel to that which is greater than you. And that's when magic can truly happen. It's true in art, it's true in music, as you, I'm sure, will you know, be a testament to that. And but it's true in prayer. It's specifically when I go and pray, and I force myself, that sometimes some magic happens. And it's almost as if I'm overcome by something that's greater than me, that lifts me up to a place that I could have not lifted myself by myself. Yeah. So that's true. That's why, by all means, pray, whether you feel like it or not. And some magic might happen as if you do so. You know, I will say that I think that it's true in life altogether, that the greatest things happen in the most unexpected way. Think about it. Maybe friends that you've made. How did you make those friendships? Maybe in the most unexpected way. That's usually the case. You bumped into this person you never knew and you became best friends. Unexpectedly. The greatest blessings come in an unexpected way. That's the way life is built. But why, if you had to analyze it mystically or Kabbalistically, why? Because that's when your ego doesn't exist, right? You're not playing a part. Your ego is not playing a part in life. And when your ego doesn't exist, that's when God can enter the picture, and God comes unexpectedly and provide you his blessings. If it's about you and your ego, then your ego becomes a blockage to those blessings, and then mundane things happen. But if you're able to remove your ego by being in an unexpected state of being, so to speak, that's when God comes in and creates his magic. You have to forget yourself, they say, to find yourself. Why? Because by forgetting yourself, you're removing your ego. And that's when God says, okay, let me point you to your true self. And that's true with prayer. When you forget yourself by saying, I don't care about my feeling right now. I'm putting that aside. My feeling doesn't want to pray, but I'm putting that aside. And God says, oh, you're egoless. I can come and magic will be created. Yeah. Okay, let's continue a little bit more in contrast. Just one more. Go ahead, Elizabeth. Go for it. In contrast, you've done such a good job until now. Continue. Yeah. Go ahead.
Contrast, there is the ideal to blend our inner desires with the communal service. Such a prayer combines a person's outer actions and inner intent, his words and heart. When a person achieves this, the inner movement of his soul is in complete accord with the framework of the prayer service.
Right. Gary, that's what you were speaking about a little bit before, that there's this element to prayer that connects us to the community. And when we're able to put our egos aside and connect ourselves to community, then we can achieve much greater things than what we could have achieved alone, because we have the power of the community with us. That's true, particularly in prayer. And that's also why it says that a prayer with a minion can really pierce all of the gates of heaven open. If I pray alone, then maybe my prayers can be refused temporarily, at least. But when I pray the community, then that weight of the community breaks open all the gates of heaven.